Hi guys, welcome back, and to you new folks, welcome. In this video, we'll redo the chainstay that I messed up a few weeks ago. I'll try a few new things this time around. We'll start by making a new form with some maple wood. I don't know why I got maple. I had walnut in mind because it's a harder wood, but I just totally flaked out and got maple. Anyway, not a big deal. Maple is way better than a 2x4. But if you need to make a form, I recommend using walnut. So today I was a little concerned that it would rain because I need to do some cutting with the wood router. And I usually do that outside because it makes so much dust. Here is the maple I purchased. It's sold as 4 3x3 wood turning blocks. The first thing I need to do is cut these lengthwise down the middle. I don't own a table saw, so I decided to use my bandsaw. However, I didn't have a wood cutting blade. I did have a metal cutting blade, a dull one lying around. So I used my angle grinder to cut notches out of the blade to be kind of like a wood cutting blade. I tested my handiwork out on a 2x4 and it did indeed cut faster, so I went to it with the maple wood. By the time I was ready to cut the form, it had already started raining, so I had to do my cut in the garage. I opened the door and set up a fan to blow the dust outside. It's kind of strange that whenever I open the garage door, I get really self-conscious. There's a stoplight on the street that runs in front of the garage, and cars are always stopping in front, and strangely, I don't like being watched by these people. Even though I upload my videos on YouTube for anyone to watch, I don't get it. Funny how that works. Anyway, while editing the video, I noticed this guy put his window down just to watch what I was doing. I got a kick out of that. Okay, enough about my personal insecurities, let's cut this thing. So first, I went at it with the jigsaw to remove most of the wood. Then with a flat router, I surfaced the arch. I couldn't get it perfectly flat because the flex and sloppy rigidity of my jig, but that's okay, it's flat enough for this purpose. Next, I installed a 1-inch round router bit and began cutting at about 1/4 depth. I learned a lesson from the last time I did this because a year ago I went full on and cut at final depth, which left me with a really rough cut. So this time around I wanted to get a much cleaner cut, so cutting incrementally worked so much better. Here is the cut, nice and smooth, but somehow I lined up the tool wrong and it was biased to one side of the form. This didn't matter too much, but it did make one of the wood sides a little weaker. Ideally, I would have used a thicker block to start with so that both sides would be thicker. Oh well. Here are the new chainstays. Francois commented on these asking if I could find pre-bent chainstays. And you are right, I totally could do that, but I didn't because I became obsessed with trying to understand how to bend these chainstays. Here you can see a gap at the bottom of the form because the tube is oval in the middle. So to fill that gap, I thought it would be fun to try out this stuff called Instamorph. It's a plastic that when heated, it can be formed kind of like a clay, and at room temperature it hardens. It's ready to start forming when it turns clear. I put some in the form and then pressed it down with the chainstay, but then I got carried away and added more because it seemed like a good idea. Here it is, all formed to fit the oval tube near perfectly, and then I thought, why not use it on the V-blocks too? When it cools, it goes from a clear to a opaque white. Now for the bend, I had no idea if this method would be successful. For this test, I wanted to see if I could get a wrinkle-free bend using a form that follows the radial curve of this tube, and it didn't work. It didn't even get a wrinkle, it got like a dent. Okay, since chainstays are sold in pairs, we get one more try at this. For the next test, I got the idea to fill the tube with Instamorph to act as kind of like a mandrel, but I needed a way to prevent the Instamorph from sticking to the inside of the tube when the tube's heated, so I used olive oil to coat the inside of the tube. In hindsight, I think cutting fluid would have been a better choice, because olive oil, it kind of evaporates when it heats up, whereas cutting fluid doesn't do that. I heated up some more Instamorph and began packing it into the tube using a steel rod. Then I threw it into a bucket of water so that it would cool faster. While that was cooling, I went ahead and redid the Instamorph form because what I had before was overkill. It was just way too much. Okay, now with the Plasti-Dip cooled inside the tube, it's time to give this another try. I went with a subtle bend, and it came out wrinkle-free. So that gave me high hopes to complete the bend to final curve. So back in it went, and wrinkles. So this being my last chainstay, I went ahead and began the process of heating the tube and removing the Instamorph inside. Instamorph can be reheated to get it back to its moldable state. So once it was up to temp, I used the rod to push it out, and that kind of worked, but there were smaller bits that melted off and were now sticking to the insides of the tube. So I spent about 30 minutes getting those smaller bits out. It was a major pain, but I did manage to extract them all. Now I needed to add the dimple, and I hoped that when I pushed the die into the tube, it would unwrinkle the wrinkles I made. And for the most part, it did. I could see some slight signs of where the dimple once was, but I decided that this I can live with. So for the final bend, I flipped the chainstay around and bent again to form my S-bend. And this went flawlessly. So yeah, here is my final bent chainstay. It's not perfect, but for my first frame, I am okay with that. All said and done, I'm glad I went through this exercise. I scratched that itch to know if this thing would work. Okay, that's it for this video. For the next video in this series, we need to miter and notch the chainstays for dropouts, so please do drop in for that. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.